In this podcast, we talk about the defeat to Chelsea, the win against Birmingham, and answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Avenelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Avenelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana and Tom. We are the Boro podcast that gives you all of the Boro Matchday chatter in a podcast. And well, a win against Birmingham and a defeat to Chelsea saw Boro bow out to the FA Cup for the first time. Guys, it wasn't meant to be, but tell me how you're feeling in as many words as you want. Dana, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think there's just an overriding sense of pride, to be honest. This FA Cup journey has brought about memories that will stick with me for the rest of my life, and it was definitely more than I could have ever expected. And the run that we've had has been magnificent, even starting at Mansfield, obviously a League Two side, but they were on a fantastic run. And even long after we played them, they were still on a really good run. It was only last weekend that they finally got beaten. Beating Manchester United at Old Trafford on penalties is just brilliant within itself, really. And then beating Spurs, what an atmosphere that was against Tottenham on that night. It was a very, very special night under the lights of the Riverside. And yeah, it was a step too far for us against Chelsea, but we can be so proud of our club and so excited for the future as well, because in every game we competed and we showed what we're capable of and what we can do.
Yeah, so proud and for the future as well. And absolutely, Dan, I was really impressed with Boro at times yesterday. Tom, how are you feeling? As many words as you want.
Yeah, kind of similar. I think it's always kind of natural to feel a little bit disappointed after losing the game or going out with a cup, but the overriding sense there's pride with how we played yesterday. Quality shone through for Chelsea, absolutely, but there were times when some of our play, like we were just getting around them and they couldn't cope with it. And it's just good to say, like, it was only spells. There's nothing kind of there, kind of saying we could have matched them or anything like that. But there were definitely encouraging signs throughout that game, and yeah, just what it is an achievement getting to the quarterfinals and the way we've done it in terms of. Knocking United out at Old Trafford, Spurs in the manner we did, and we made them look pretty average on that night. If you'd have looked at that game as unusual, you wouldn't have been able to tell who was the Premier League team and who was Championship team. Like it's been a great run. Slightly disappointed to see it end, but we can just be proud of what we did during it.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to go to Wembley twice or three times in one season anyway? We don't really need that. But I agree with you both. I think there's a lot of pride coming out of the FA Cup run this season. There's a lot of really good stories and heartwarming stuff that's happened. Sol Bamba, coming on and taking a penalty at Man United. His performance yesterday was superb when he came on, and that's a lovely story. You've seen the FA Cup upset against Spurs at the Riverside, where Josh Coburn comes on, a young kid who Boro picked up from Sunderland, and he's came and scored the winner, and he's kind of not fully kickstarted his career, but like everyone was talk about him and see him more and more in this team. There's just some great memories, I think. As Isaiah Jones when he played the ball back in the game against Mansfield, and we ended up winning. We could have wobbled, and Boyd Munn scored in his debut. So many good memories and a lot to be proud of. But let's talk about Chelsea then, where Boro welcomed the world champions to the Riverside. Dan, what was your thoughts on the game? Because quality shone through in the end.
It did, and I think my disappointment has grown overnight, to be honest. And Chris Wilder said after the game that we weren't a million miles away, but at the same time we were. And I think that probably amplifies that disappointment that we did play some really good stuff, and I thought we got in a few times, and obviously 5 shots on goal, 0 on target. That's disappointing, but I thought we had a lot of chances to create more than that, and I think that's where the disappointment comes from. And obviously what Wilder said there, we're not a million miles off it. It was just that final bit in the final third that I feel like I've been saying, and kind of my Xbox keeps turning on. I'm sorry about that. I've kind of been speaking about it since I've been in the womb, it feels like. And, we just need that extra bit. And that's what really shone through. In the end, for Chelsea, they had it, we didn't. And but as I said, I think we battled hard, we competed well. And, it was one of those games where in the past, when we've come up against sides like that, we've kind of sat back and just tried to hit them on the counter. We never did that. And I think that's something to definitely take as a big positive out of the game.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there, like not being not a million miles away, that 1% difference doesn't seem much in football, but it actually is huge when you see it. And we've got it in Balogun's goal a little bit later on, where I'm going to break down like that 1% difference, or what could have been done differently to stop that happening, or the goal that's broke down. But Tom, what were your thoughts and assessments of the game? Is there anything else that you picked up from in terms of like the quality, or is there anything Boro could have improved on?
No, I agree with Dana that it was mainly the final third. I mean, their final third, it did have that extra bit of quality. We saw that in the lead up to the first goal, just the pace of Mason Mount to kind of get past McNair in the first place on that right hand side. I mean, even going back on that, the fact that we kind of got sucked in on the press higher up the pitch, they would just manage to pass out. And get it into that position for the low across the face of goal anyway was good play from them. From the way they play out from the back is probably the way us and other kind of possession based teams would aspire to do. Going forward, we did play some good stuff. We had some good link ups on the right hand side between Dijksteel, Crooks, and Jones. We were getting in the similar positions which would have worked in the championship, I think, but just the last delivery wasn't there, or like if it did go across, it was just kind of too far past people. Obviously, we had those five shots, but it seemed kind of most of them were blazed over the bar, and we were kept to those kind of low quality ones out from outside the box.
Yeah. And I think just adding to that as well, I think when you look at like the quality of this Chelsea side as well, and how well drilled and well oiled machine they are under Tuchel, I think it's just like when I was watching Thiago Silva and Rudiger yesterday, like I think the kit men must love Thiago Silva, because I don't think I've ever seen him make a slide tackle or get mud in his boots. It's just positional play is so good. And obviously when we've got the likes of Connolly and Balogun up front, 2 young strikers, and you come up against someone who's such a high quality of that, you can't really expect too much from them. But I thought they played relatively okay. I thought Josh, when he came on, was really good. Watmore caused a lot of problems as well. But I think when you watch sides like Chelsea, and you can see why the world champions, because the way they move off the ball and how the position, the shape, it's all really, really good. And I really like seeing these sides live. I think you can see a different dynamic to how they play and appreciate it a little bit more. But in terms of the game tactically, Dana, appreciate there's a lot of quality, and that's going to probably help a lot of things. But what did they do tactically, Chelsea, to nullify Boro's threat?
Well, it definitely helps that they've got defenders that can read the game like a children's book. I agree with what you said about Thiago Silva. I think him, Rudiger, and Cesar Azpilicueta, just fantastic defenders, really. The reading of the game, Jermaine Gina said it on commentary, that not about he played with Emerson.
It was George. It's George Boateng. That's what he was meaning. That's bad, that, isn't it?
What a tweet that was. Did you say that on the commentary? Because obviously
He said it was Emerson. Yes, he said he remember he came. Obviously, we were at the game, so I've watched it back, and he said that I remember coming to the Riverside and playing up against Emerson. What a player he was! Emerson left in '98. Genius made the trip to Newcastle in 2003. Your favourite year, Turner.
Yeah,
so
what a gaff
it
that is.
It was George Boateng of all players. There you
Bloody
go.
hellfire. Anyway, what he said as well on commentary is that Thiago Silva can read a situation before it's even really played out in front of him, and that's exactly Thiago Silva, isn't it? It's just a fantastic defender. But Tuchel said after the game that he adapted to try to deal with Isaiah Jones. Now, I must be going crazy here. I'm not going to be hoodwinked by his, I guess, tactical spiel there, because it didn't work. It genuinely didn't work. I thought their left-hand side was incredibly poor between Pulisic and Sarr. I thought, well, incredibly poor is probably pushing it a little bit, but it was definitely a weak spot, and we tried to exploit that. We did get down that right-hand side quite a few times with Dijksteel and Jones. And I suppose that's where my disappointment comes from, because we had opportunities to put good balls into the box, and I think our final ball was just not there. There was a good piece of defending, though, from Thiago Silva, where he does read it. He reads it before the cross is really played into the box. I think that definitely helped. Excuse me. So, yeah, I think tactically they definitely limited Howson, really. I thought Ruben Loftus-Cheek was fantastic in the way that he was just kind of setting the tone of the game. Whenever Chelsea were building out from the back, it was Ruben Loftus-Cheek that was really making it all kind of come to fruition. Kovacic was good as well, of course, but I thought Ruben Loftus-Cheek was probably the best player on the park, along with Mason Mount. It was just the ability to receive the ball and turn with ease, and then just get the play going. I thought he was fantastic in that, and definitely a player that we can maybe look at and take pointers from that performance, because I think they nullified Howson, which was something that Tuchel wanted to do, and I think Loftus-Cheek was able to pull the strings in midfield, which was a big problem for Boro and a big part of Chelsea's game.
Yeah, there's absolute levels to this game. But before I ask you about your favourite moment of the cup run this year, I want to just give you. There was some downsides to the game yesterday. Paddy McNair, Dale Fry going off injured. How much of a miss do you think they will be in the coming weeks if they don't come back after the international break?
Well, Wilder said that he fucking loves Paddy McNair, but also that couldn't help myself there. That it was a blow to his foot. That the goalkeeper, I don't know whether that was Mendy or Lumley, stood on his foot, and the swelling. Well, hopefully, the swelling isn't so bad that he's out for the Peterborough game. I think the international break has probably come at a good time for Boro, but if he is out, it's going to be a big miss, because I said last week that between him and Dijksteel and Jones, there's three really important players for Boro. And Dijksteel and McNair, they're so important because of the roles that they play. And I suppose the players that come in to play instead of them just aren't as effective in that role. So if he is out, that's going to be a big miss. Fry, I think, similarly. But with Fry, I think when you put Bamba in there, to be fair, he has been good the past few cameos that he's had, but there's always something quite unnerving with Sol Bamba in the team. I don't know whether this is completely unsubstantiated or whether I'm just thinking about that slip against us when he played for Leeds, but I do feel like he's got a little erratic moment in him. But to be fair, Sol Bamba is a defender and he will defend, and I thought he was excellent when he came on yesterday. So if he's called upon, I think he'll do a good job, but McNair will be a huge miss, I think.
Just to say, you're not going crazy. I have that same feeling with Bamba when he plays. But there is games like yesterday where we'll be absolutely unstoppable. And then there has been other moments other than that slip when he was playing for Leeds where he's either slipped or like given the ball away or something for us. Like, you still can't hold it against him because he's so Bamba.
Yeah, it's definitely clouded my my memory of him somewhat. But I wonder if Mark Bowler as a left-sided centre-back is potentially a shout. We've seen him play there before, albeit I think it was one game against Brentford in the Cup, wasn't it? But I'm just thinking in terms of an attacking threat, potentially putting Mark Bowler there might be a shout. But I do think Bowler looks a little bit off it at the moment and probably needs a few more games to get fully up to speed. So I don't know.
Yeah, he's had quite a lot of time out as Mark Bowler, and I think he will improve probably coming the end of the season. But Tom, Dana's alluded to it there around like Fry and McNair being on, but what do Boro get tactically with Bamba and Peltier coming in, and what do we lose? Because there's probably a lot to gain in terms of experience, but tactically there could be something that Boro aren't as effective.
Yeah, I think it's something we spoke about last week in terms of like the roles and responsibilities of certain players coming into the system, and it might be more defensive with certain players. I do think that's the case when you bring Peltier in for McNair. Peltier is not going to be making the kind of runs forward that McNair can make. He's not going to bring the ball out of defence as much. And, there was that moment against Birmingham where McNair pretty much dribbled through the entire team and had a shot like blazed over the bar, I think it was. Like it's not going to be like that with Peltier. I think he's going to be a lot more kind of defensive minded. Same with Bamba, but he's in Fry's role anyway, so you'd kind of expect him to be back. We saw yesterday with him marking Lukaku how strong he is, and he can play out of the back as we saw a bit later on. There was a great turn that he did just on the halfway line to get out of trouble and then just play the ball out. But as we were saying just now as well, there's always that worry with Bamba that he might do something and lose the ball. But I think Bamba for Fry's kind of a like-for-like change, and with Peltier and McNair, that's what you're going to get. You're just going to get more defensive-minded with Peltier.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you can the experience that both of them have was very, very good. Like you could see that yesterday. I thought the way they're reading the game, and for me it looked like Fry just wasn't 100% from the off. Really, I think that's what I thought. Maybe he is carrying something. So we could have maybe started with Bamba early doors, and that could have potentially helped things. But it doesn't really matter now. And hopefully they're not too serious. But then on the other end of the pitch. Chris Wilder said in his post-match presser on BBC T Sport, he said that Josh Coburn isn't a million miles away, and he's given a food for thought. I know on the last podcast we have said that we shouldn't really rely on Josh Coburn to fire us up to the Premier League, but is it time for him to start? And I want to give a shout out to Ollie Moss because he's asked a similar question as well. But do you think it's time for him to start?
You know what? I don't know what I personally said last podcast about Coburn, but I kind of feel like the more the games tick over, the less reason I'm seeing to not play him or not start him. I think he's someone that's obviously growing. He's a young player. We need to be patient with him, of course. But I agree with what Chris Wilder said, that, it's food for thought. And I think that to play him from the off, maybe alongside Watmore, you have a runner and a finisher there, it might be a good dynamic. I don't think we've really seen that too much apart from obviously yesterday, but I think that might be a good dynamic to have, just, Watmore stretching the defence. I think Coburn is a good finisher, and as I've said before, I think he's the best finisher at the club. That's not to say that he's going to finish all of his chances. I know he's got a good goals to or shot to goal ratio that probably isn't sustainable, but I do think that he's a natural finisher, and that's something that's very hard to find. So, to be honest, I wouldn't be adverse to seeing it. We've had a lot of strike combinations. It might be unfair to drop Balogun and Connolly. They did play well against Birmingham, and that was just the game prior to the Chelsea match. But I think for future, he's very much in the conversation. He's very much part of it. I would quite like to see him start. And, Peterborough, worst team in the league, but let's not underestimate them. Obviously, it's the Championship. They do seem to be picking up a little bit under Grant McCann, but it might be a good opportunity to maybe test that or try that out.
Okay, then. The final question on the Chelsea and the FA Cup run. Then, I just want to ask you what your favourite moment of the run was. Appreciate, like I said at the start of the show, we've done a lot of good things, a lot of good stories to tell. And I want to know what your favourite moment was. Tom, do you want to go first on that one?
I'm going to say when Elanga missed the penalty at Old Trafford. Just the atmosphere after that was great. We stood there for like a good solid 5 minutes or so, like just applauding and absolutely loving life afterwards. And I think it was only a couple of hours at that point until my birthday. So like, what a way to celebrate it. So yeah, I got to go with that one. The Coburn goal was definitely up there, but I think that just had a bit more meaning for me at the time.
Okay, Dana, what are you going to go for?
It's tough because they're both the same type of moment for me. They invoke the same sort of feeling of just elation and joy. And I think just for the sake of being different, I'll say Josh Coburn against Spurs, because the noise when that went in, it was coming, wasn't it? The way that we were playing, the way that we were dominating that game and competing in that match, it felt like a goal was coming. And then when it finally did, I think the roof just came off, didn't it? It was an unbelievable moment where, and for it to be Coburn as well, a young lad, brilliant moment for him. And I think I think we can take that as a definite high. So yeah, Elanga missing the penalty was fantastic. Ronaldo missing his penalty in the first half at Old Trafford. At the time, I was thinking, well, if we don't do anything else in this game, at least I've got that. But Coburn against Spurs for me was brilliant.
Yeah, I think there's so many good moments in there. I think like the shithousery of the way we equalised against United as well, where it could have been a handball, it wasn't, and Crooksy scored against a team that he got released from. We've got Maul obviously linking up as well. He got released from United too. But yeah, I think Josh Coburn edges it, doesn't he? I think the moment that his face when it hits the back of the net and the way he celebrates, it's a really, really good cup run to beat the teams we did. With Mansfield, who are in really good form, and that was a difficult tie. You've beat United at Old Trafford, you've beat Spurs. Appreciate Spurs United. We're expected to beat those teams now because we're mint. But Chelsea wise, yeah, it's a step too far, but we have a lot to be proud of. But let's move on to questions then before we move into the Birmingham breakdown. And then the first one is from Jez, and he says, "Where do we need to strengthen right now? Obviously, we're not the best team in the world, but where is the next spot that needs changing to really advance our football?" Tom, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think strikers. I think the final third. I don't want to say let us down a bit yesterday, but I think you can see we were lacking a bit of quality there. And past the end of the season as well, we've got to be looking at either loans coming back or replacing the people who've gone. Obviously, we've still got like Uche and Akpom to come back. I fully expect they'll be moved on. And I think strikers probably the glaringly obvious place that needs addressing in terms of just bringing people in for next season. So I would say that.
Okay, centre forwards then. And next couple of questions, and it's still around like the striker situation. Jordan did ask us, will we see Sporar play again? Tom, I'll stick with you. Do you think so? Yes?
I think we will.
No? Yeah.
I think from what I've heard, I'm claiming to be kind of 100% clued up on the situation, but from what I've heard, it was like personal issues that has kept him out the last few games. He's back in Portugal for him or something. Even from kind of judging what Wilder said in the press conference on BBC Tees yesterday, he was still kind of talking about him like, oh, he wasn't with us today and stuff like that. I can definitely see him playing for us again.
Yeah, it was in the crowd yesterday. It was Andras Sporar. But yeah, apparently he has been back to Portugal. But then I want to give you this two-part of them because Jack and Mark have asked us questions around the striker situation, and they're both concerned to see how it might potentially look when the season is finished. Jack asks, does the strike situation concern you once the season is finished? I.e., the loan strikers return to the clubs. Of course, we've got Josh Coburn and Duncan Watmore and Chuba Akpom as your centre forwards. And then Mark's asked, who would you like to see us sign next season? And the Coventry striker can never pronounce his name.
Gyökeres.
Gyökeres. Probably still
I think
butchered it.
Gyökeres. I always say
Yeah.
Gyökeres. It just sounds better to do the esh at the end, but I don't know if that's
Anyway, that striker from Coventry, I'll call him for now.
Yeah,
Would you like to see him sign for Boro next season? So, who would you like? Yeah, are you concerned about the striker situation? Would you like us to see bring in a striker next year?
I'm not concerned, no, because I could actually see Balogun coming back next season. I can pretty much see Connolly the same. I feel like we are maybe bringing them in with a view to keeping them next season. If that is Connolly potentially signing on a permanent deal, I'm not so sure. Probably less likely with Balogun, of course. I can see Balogun staying just for continuity purposes of his development, really. So I'm not too concerned. Obviously, I understand the worries because, let's be honest, we have two contracted strikers to us of four, but probably going to be two with Uche and Akpom being moved on. So I can understand it, but for me, I feel like the two that we've got on loan will be here next season. Sporar, not so confident about that, but we'll see. And then with Gyökeres, I said in the group chat yesterday, didn't I, that he would be perfect for Boro because he's very good in his all-round play. But Coventry fans have said this a few times that his finishing could do with some work. And he did have a chance yesterday against Derby where He went through on goal. He did everything right, like literally everything right. He got through on goal 1-on-1 with the keeper, and then the finish was so bad. It was really bad. It went straight into, I think it ended up in Nottingham, to be honest. It was that bad. And I was kind of thinking, yeah, sign him. He's perfect. The build-up's brilliant, and then the final bit probably isn't great. I mean, to be fair, we shouldn't discount that he's got double figures in goals this season. So that's more than what we've got. So yeah, I mean, he was brilliant against us at the Riverside. We just need a finisher, to be honest. We really do. We need somebody that I think can run in behind, that can run the channels. Someone with a decent touch as well, because what you'll see with Boro strikers is they'll drop deep to receive, but then the touch is so off that it basically takes them into our own defensive third, or we lose the ball because of it. We need somebody with like a nice little pillow touch to just be able to take it, trap it in, set the ball, and then get us going. We don't really have that at the moment. And for all Balogun's technical ability, I don't think his touch is particularly great when he is receiving it. Somebody said he can't trap a bag of sand, which was quite funny after the Barnsley game. But I kind of see that there's some truth to it. But yeah, we need a finisher, to be honest. It goes without saying. We just struggle to really convert chances.
Okay, then. The next question is from Josh, and he says, "Does McGree have to come into the midfield once he's fit again?" And the Peterborough game is when he's expected to return. We're way too predictable at times. So, Tom, does Ryan McGree deserve to come back into the midfield once he's fit again?
I don't think he does. I don't think the midfield's the problem, to be honest. I mean, even Tuchel was saying in his interview he was trying to kind of nullify House, and I think Tav's been playing great, and Crooks, you can't take him out because of that link up that we've got with Dijksteel and Jones on the right hand side. I think the issue is kind of just being a bit too unbalanced with our attacking creation. I don't think we've got too much on the left. Nothing against Taylor, because I think he's doing a good job defensively, and he clearly kind of reads the game well and everything. It's just we don't have the same as Jones on the left hand side, so we are a bit too kind of one dimensional there. People know that we're going to use Jones, and they can get people back in the box to try and defend it. So I don't think it's the midfield that's the issue in terms of being predictable. I think it's a whole team thing where people know we're going to utilise Jones.
Okay, well, this leads quite nicely to the last question of the day. It's from Charlie, and he says, after Tuchel's interview about their tactics, does this emphasise we need an attacking left wing back for the balance? Do you think Boro could be that attacking threat? Danny, you've said about him potentially moving into a left centre back role, and we've mentioned on the previous podcast that could be a good fit for him. But do you think Boro should look to try and balance that attacking threat out on that left hand side? Yes.
Yeah, I do, to be honest. I think there are question marks over Matt Bowler still, but we won't find the answers to that really until he fully gets back into the swing of things. I do think that his long injury layoff is showing in his game at the moment. As Tom mentioned, that nice little play from Bamba was followed by just a kind of light, loose touch from Bowler that he basically didn't really trap the ball, did he? He didn't really get his foot on it, and it went straight out of play for a throw-in, which was quite frustrating, but it pretty much sums up Bowler at the moment. We just need to give him a little bit more time to get back into the swing of things. But yeah, I do think that we need to maybe balance it out. I mean, how amazing is that for Isaiah Jones, by the way, coming from Tooting and Mitcham and then having Thomas Tuchel try to adapt his whole Chelsea team, the champions of Europe, champions of the world, trying to deal with little Lizzie from Tooting and Mitcham. I think that's brilliant. But yeah, I do think we need a little bit more on that left hand side.
Little Lizzie from Tooting. Jesus Christ, that's gonna stick. That's gonna stick, isn't it? Right. Okay, then let's move on. And just before I move on, I just want to say that if you want to submit a question to us, you can do it via Twitter on Twitter at the Boro_breakdown, or join our Telegram chat. It's got 145 members at the moment, constantly growing. You can submit a question on there, and the Boro Breakdown at hotmail.com if you want to do it via email. So let's talk about Birmingham because Boro knew a win at St Andrews would see them return to the playoff places for 24 hours. And of course, after the games on Saturday, Boro have dropped down to 8th place in the championship table, 2 points off the playoff places, but they do have a game in hand. Dana, a 2-0 win. Connolly and Balogun scoring. I mean, questionably on Connolly, it was technically an own goal, but we'll give it a Connolly.
It
We'll
was
give
not
it for the
goal, but
confidence.
yeah.
We'll give him it for the confidence. But how would you assess that performance? Because it seemed to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought we were good value for the win. I mean, there were a few people on our Telegram chat at half time that were maybe a little bit disappointed in the way that Borough were playing, but I thought, I mean, I can understand that we did let up a few opportunities for Birmingham. And I say opportunities, they weren't really chances as such. It was just, I suppose, openings more than anything. But I thought we grew into the half. And then when we got the goal, I thought it was pretty comfortable from there on in, to be honest. And Birmingham offered pretty much nothing. They were toothless throughout the entirety of the game, epitomised, of course, by what Tom said, that chance for Paddy McNair, where he just cut through the entirety of that Birmingham team. And I thought that was a bit sus. But second half, I thought when we got that second goal, it was really comfortable for us, to be honest. And yeah, we were well worth the 3 points, I thought.
Okay, then, Tom, although it was I think Dana said it was a bit more impressive, a bit more comfortable win for Boro. Were you surprised a little bit of how poor Birmingham were at times? I think, Dana, you said it as well about them being quite lifeless at times on Twitter. But Tom, were you surprised at all about Birmingham?
Not really, but it's literally only because I've got a client at work who's a Birmingham fan, and I was talking to them the week before, and they were just like, "Nah, we're terrible. You're going to win." So I was like, oh, "Okay." But I went into that game kind of expecting that, but I don't want that kind of like discount from what Borough did, because I think after the Sheffield United game, there was definitely a change. You could see it in the attitude, mentality of the players against Millwall and against Birmingham, where we seem to be a lot more focused. We seem to be doing our jobs a lot better, and we did that. We executed it well against Birmingham and got the 2-0 win. Finally broke that away to hoodoo thing, but yeah. I did think we played well that game. The challenge now was going to be to kind of carry that over to Peterborough in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's good client relationship management there, Tom. Not digging too much into Birmingham, but Dana, I'm going to give you the opportunity to destroy the relationship here. Do you think that Birmingham are a bit lifeless? Do you think that the kind of just threw them in the motions at the moment? They're lucky that there's probably 3 or 4 worse teams than them this season.
I think Gab said that, didn't he, in his preview last week? I mean, I went a little bit stronger than lifeless. I did say pathetic. I do think they were. I think it was the lack of press. I think the lack of press when you would expect press to be made. You know, when Paddy McNair just glides through the entirety of their defensive midfield and attack, it was just there was nothing really there from them. And I think they're a team that are probably going through it a little bit, as you said, and the management, ownership, faceless people that are running the club. It just seems quite problematic at the moment. And you saw it honestly looked like it was in lockdown, that Birmingham was in lockdown because of the stadium situation. Now, they have the bottom tiers are closed for some reason. I'm not 100% clued up on it or sure about it, but it was only the top tiers that were. Just seems like another club amongst many in the championship, actually, that are kind of slipping away a little bit. And there's a lot of apathy that from the stands. And it is sad to see, to be honest. Even Derby, in fairness, as much as I hate them, this is part of a bigger problem in the EFL, where I think we're losing clubs, to be honest. And I feel like Birmingham are potentially one of those if they don't choose their ownership.
I think you're spot on there around like the lifeless side of things, and it's difficult, isn't it? Like it's a really difficult league, and especially if you don't have success within 1 or 2 seasons and you overinvest, it's a very, very difficult division to get yourself out of. The only way you're probably going to get out of it is probably get relegated, because if you are investing, you're on that wave. It's so difficult to get to that playoff places. Although they're a bit lifeless off the pitch, off the pitch, on the pitch, they're a very direct side, but didn't seem to. It's kind of felt like we were watching Warnock ball a little bit. There was no substance to anything, was there? So how were Boro able to like nullify that?
Well, I suppose when you're playing against teams that are direct like that, the second balls are really important, aren't they? Because not many target men in the championship are going to be of the quality to take a ball from the air and bring it down and then do it all themselves. They're going to bring others into play. So I think when you have that initial contact of a ball sort of down the line or a ball upfield, you need to be able to kind of win those scrappy duels in the second phases. And I think that Boro did that. It was a battle between McNair and Jukovic quite physically, and I thought he did well there. But yeah, it's all about the midfield battle, I think, and we won it. I mean, Craig Gardner might as well have been joining his brother in the director box because he was terrible on Tuesday night. I really don't know what was going on there with him, but yeah, midfield battle quite important in games like that, I think.
Okay, and then Tom, let's talk about the front two fairly quickly because a lot is said about Boro's front two. We've already talked about it today on the podcast, and it's going to probably be a continuing conversation until the end of the season and beyond. But it was a night where Connolly and Balogun both shone. But what stood out for you about their performances?
It's like I said earlier, I just think their mentality changed after the Sheffield United game. I think it started last week against Millwall. I did think they pressed well and they were able to do a lot more with the ball at the feet and kind of like drive at the defence a lot more. And they did the same against Birmingham as well. They're starting to really kind of show what technically they're all about. You know, there was one of my mates after the match yesterday was kind of slagging them both off and saying, "Oh, Balogun and Connolly, they're both terrible. Like, why we even got them and stuff." I was like, do you even watch football? Like, you can't judge them for like what they've been doing against a world class defense in Chelsea.
Let's hope he's not listening to this podcast.
I don't really mind.
Tom is not asked.
No, it's a stupid opinion. So, yeah. So I think that the Millwall game and the Birmingham game, they've really started to show what they're kind of all about in terms of their technical ability and start to look a lot more confident in terms of like getting at the defense. So, hopefully they didn't kind of feel too downbeat after Chelsea yesterday. They got no reason to. I still think they're probably going to start against Peterborough, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in the last 9 games of the season.
What I don't understand with Connolly, and it's not a fault of his at all, I don't understand why we're blasting balls up to him. He's 5'8". A lot of the time you see him try to take the ball in the air, and meanwhile you've got a defender marking him whose feet are planted firmly on the floor. They're just able to sneak in and take the ball off him or knock him off balance. It's really difficult for him to be able to take in the service that we're giving him, and I'm not really sure why we're just blasting balls up to him, to be honest. It makes zero sense in terms of the type of player that he is, the stature of him, the height. It's just not his game, and I'm a little bit confused at that.
I thought that's what you meant to do when strikers are about 5'4", aren't they? Isn't that what you meant to do? But no, then I agree with you. I think it's strange that we're trying to play a long ball into Connolly. Maybe that's where you see the likes of Josh come in, where he's going to get in the ball into feet and try and play off to Connolly or Balogun or what more, and you might be able to see that come to fruition. But don't get one dimensional with these balls into Connolly or Josh, because that's kind of becomes lifeless and also very readable. You can kind of put them in, like you were saying there, then about the long ball teams and winning those second balls. It's very easy to manage at times. It's got to be inch perfect probably most of the time. But I think if we have that outlet, then we could look to do that. But yeah, it's a bit strange putting those balls into Connolly. But
just to kind of add on to that, like I do think he puts in a lot of effort to hold that up, and you can see he does have a bit about him being able to do that. It's just you don't do that in the air; you put it into his feet. In that case, like it's kind of similar to Uche, other than there's about 6 inches difference in height, but Uche wasn't the type of striker who was going to win a lot in the air and bring it down. He needed it at the feet to hold up. And I'm not describing Connolly as a hold-up striker at all, but he's definitely got that kind of ability to put himself around and and hold the ball up if it is into his feet. And I'm confused as to why we just hoovered over his head.
Well, I'm confused as well because from his time at Brighton, he's somebody that runs down that left-hand channel, cuts inside, and has a shot. We saw it in one of his first games against Reading where he did exactly that. And as you see with Boro players at the moment, every time they cut in, I swear, apart from when Balogun scored the other day, 9 times out of 10, it just ends up in rosette. But that's what I've sort of seen of Balogun pre-Boro and whilst he's been at Brighton, running the channels. And it seems like our strikers are just coming deep now. And maybe that's because it's the wing backs that are running the channels and being that outlet in behind. But I don't understand why we aren't doing it with the strikers, because the strikers that we've got surely suit trying to kind of thread those balls through and behind the defence. But hey, I don't know.
We've said before, haven't we, like the two centre forwards and Connolly and Balogun are probably more suited to be wide forwards and cut in, like you've both said there. But they're playing like a different system at the moment. But I think overall, I think it helped them develop their own personal games anyway. But I want to chat about Balogun and his second goal because it's a really nice goal to break down, and it can show that off the ball movement. Even in its simplest form, compared dividends at the highest level. And I want to start it off where, like, just stand off at the throw. Howson receives it. He gets the ball down the line, drives. He drives on, but so does Dykesdale and Jones, and it causes like an overload on that right hand side. And you see Howson pick up a nice little pocket of space with the defenders. And appreciate you could do it if you want to be really, really picky on this defense here. And I think it's a bit unfair as the move develops. But obviously, the central midfielder who's looking towards Dykesdale, if he's flipped on the other side to where Howson is, this probably move doesn't really continue to develop as it should. But it does. With Howson moving that lovely little pocket of space, I want to highlight Dykesdale in this next passage because he continues his run and gets it round. And what you'll see is the central midfielder, just in between the centre halves and Connolly, he starts to come from a more central position in the back one to essentially move towards Dykesdale, and it pulls him right across, and it creates a lovely bit of space for Tav to receive the ball from Johnny Howson. And also, I just want to give a quick shout out to Aaron Connolly. If people are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. But in terms of the audio version, Connolly's position there, lovely little bit of side on. It's exactly what you want from your centre forward, because if Dykesdale does receive that ball, which could have been just a nice outside the foot from Howson, Boro in, it could be he's already got that half a yard on the defenders when you're looking at their weight distribution. And I think we could probably score from that angle as well, but we don't. We continue to develop the play. Howson gives the ball to Tav, and Tav does a really nice one-touch ball here, and then does something so simple and so effortless. He follows the ball and follows his pass, but then also you just see out of absolutely nowhere, you see like a horse coming from Cheltenham who's from fourth to first, and Neil Taylor, and he absolutely darts down that left-hand side. And what it causes is that there's three central defenders on the edge of the box where Balogun is when he receives the ball. And it's a minor thing, but it makes such a big difference. And it's only that 1%, and it's that 1 second difference where it helps shift all of their weight onto their right hand side. Because they could potentially expect that ball to be that reverse pass from Balogun to either Tav or Neil Taylor, and Boro can get down the line again. But it doesn't. With them shifting the weight on the right foot, it creates a nice little pocket of space for Balogun here. And Balogun can only hit this one place. And it's that little gap where he finds himself in. And he finds it, of course, right at the top bins. And it's a wonderful, wonderful strike. Really good technique as well. And he bends around the keeper at a good angle. If you're looking at the goalkeeper there, if you really, really, really want to be picky, and I don't think you should be, he could move over to his left-hand side just slightly. He might have a better chance. But overall, I think it's a really, really good goal from Boro and shows that off-the-ball movement is just as important than on-the-ball movement itself. And Boro just doing those little finer details and little moments, those little 1% difference. It makes such a massive difference in football, and like we've seen yesterday and like we've seen today with this goal here. It's just that creating a bit of space when you're on and off the ball can just pay dividends and create bigger chances for the team. But overall, I'm really impressed by this goal. Shows good movement from Boro, and a really good win to round it off. But Dana, we spoke a lot about Boro's away form. and how poor it is, and it's how important it is to probably pick up 2 points a game across the season, because you'll probably be up there towards the end of it. But you think that was kind of a marker to say, right, okay, we've won against Birmingham. Yes, they weren't as good as probably the other teams we're going to play probably for the remainder of the season, but it's a marker, and we can do more of it in future games.
Yeah, 100%. It gets a bit of a burden off our shoulders, if you like, because I'm sure the players would have been aware of Boro's away form. And I guess what's been undone on the road, really, because our home form is fantastic. We still have that league consistency, the wins. I know Chelsea obviously beat us, so in all competitions it's gone, but we can still hold on to that and cling on to that in the league in terms of consecutive victories. It's just the flip side of it, our home form. As I said on the podcast last week, it was below the league average. So it's good that we've got that up a little bit, and then we've obviously got that win. I just hope that we can garner some consistency now, because obviously we've got Peterborough next. Our next away game after that, does anyone know what it is? Is it
I'll find
Bournemouth?
out.
I hate playing Bournemouth. Can we just can playing Bournemouth? They always put us against Bournemouth towards the end of the season, and I'm telling you now, they do it because they want us to fail. That
It
the
is
EFL
Bournemouth.
are corrupt. Yeah, Bournemouth. So that's really tough. Yeah, I've got a stat for that Bournemouth game. I'm going to save it for the pre-Bournemouth podcast. It's not a good one. Let me just say that. I might reverse psychology it and do the curse stat of the day, but in favour of us. But yeah, we need to gather some consistency now, because there's no point in beating Birmingham if we get beat by Peterborough. You know, we need to add that consistency, because if we can't get that consistency, we won't be in the top 6 come the end of the season.
Okay, then. Well, let's move into the final questions then, and I will return to Shithouse Island, the island where we find the biggest shithouses across Middlesbrough Football Club, and put them on an island and see how they do. So we had quite a few people message us this week about the interaction between Riley McGree and Aaron Connolly on Instagram. It's about they're taking the piss out of each other's injuries and height of fair play, but does it deserve a place on the island? Give you both an opinion on this, because if I'm honest, I'm questioning it. Tom, what do you think?
I think we need to set a higher bar for Shithouse Island. I don't think a bit of banter on Instagram's kind of up there with some of the stuff that's been accomplished to get on that island in the first place. So personally, I wouldn't give them a place on the island.
No place for Connolly and Ryan McGree. For Tom then, and then Dana, what do you think? Group decision?
Not for me, Clive, only because I'll have to start putting people in the sea in the Shithouse Island graphic. But we've got some good things going on there. We've got the Boro fans doing Ronaldo's celebration, quite ironically. You've got Willow flood with a pint. Yeah, we've got some good ones going on there, but I think we need to set the bar a little bit higher now, so not for me.
Okay, you could probably next time we put someone on, I think we could probably put them in a rubber dinghy or something in the middle of the sea. We're being a collider. But yeah, I agree, guys. Decision made, not on the island. But final question of the day, then I want to move it in the praising place, because it's our place where we give praise to anyone at the club for something that could be good. Tom, do you want to go first? Who is your person in the praise and place this week?
I feel like I'm getting to the point now where I'm talking about him more than Dana, which is saying something. But Tav again, like there was there was a point.
Tav just gets a lifelong membership. Is that how it is now? Is it?
Pretty much, yeah. But there was a point in the first half yesterday. I can't remember who was marking him. I think it might have been Loftus-Cheek. But he had his back to the goal, just near the halfway line. He was holding the ball up, and he somehow manages to hold him off, do a 180-degree turn, and then drive at the defence. And I can't remember who he passed it off to, but that was it was so good. And if we'd have been having this conversation about Tav last year, you wouldn't have said his strength is one of his strengths. But he's definitely shown it at the moment with his move into centre midfield. And honestly, that for me was just like it was incredible how he did it. And you can see how much his game's developed, I think, under Wilder.
Okay, then a Tav for you. Dana, who are you going to go for?
It's funny with Tav, actually, because my friend Lewis messaged the sports journalism group chat and said, "Found Tav," and it was just a Duracell battery, which I found quite funny. But yeah, he's non-stop, isn't he? But no, mine. It's funny because I'm going to move on to another favourite of mine. I have to say, Anthony Dijksteel. I think he's bloody brilliant. I really do. I think he's a very clever defender, and he's so good in his recoveries. You saw that goal line clearance yesterday. Just the awareness to just know that to be there in the right place at the right time. He's just brilliant in the way that he defends, the way that he reads the game. I think he's just got a very good ability to get back, to recover the sort of the recovery pace, knowing how to use his body cleverly as well. Since he's come back into the team after illness, I thought he's been brilliant, to be honest. He is one of our most important players, not just in terms of defensively, but offensively as well. He sets the platform for the likes of Crooks and Jones, but he's also on that platform himself, because we've seen his part to play in those little triangle moves, and I think he's a very, very good defender. A few people saying that he's the weak spot in this defense. I really strongly disagree. I think Anthony Dijksteel is a very, very underrated defender, and he's turned out to be a decent signing, hasn't he? I remember when he was out injured, we were sort of saying, what, we've wasted money on him, this, that, and the other. But ever since he's come back, I remember that game against Reading that marked his return. He's just been imperious, really. He's pretty much unflappable. And yeah, I think my Netherlands flag is down there. I can't quite get it. It's behind Patrick, but yeah, definitely be holding that aloft if I could get that out.
Yeah, you aren't holding someone called Patrick Ransom, then it is Patrick from SpongeBob.
It's
need to
Patrick
clarify
from
that.
SpongeBob, yes.
Need to clarify that. For people that are listening to the podcast and thinking, why is Dana holding someone called Patrick Ransom next to a Netherlands flag? But yeah, your Dijksteel, I'd do anything for you. It's getting his spot, Dana. Tav for you, Tom. I'm going to go with Saul Bamba. I think just the run, the FA Cup run, his performance yesterday, everything that's happened over the last 12 to 18 months, I just think, yeah, you know what, you'll do for me, Sol. You'll do for me. But yeah, Anthony Dijksteel, fantastic. Then I feel like I'm a broken record. What Tav is to you, Dijksteel's to me, and Joe Lumley's to Tom. Sorry, Tom. I know I'm only joking. But yeah, I just think Dijksteel's fantastic. I really, really do. Unbelievable. But yeah, Saul Bamba gets my mention this week. I just think, like I said there, everything that he's been through, the performance he put in yesterday, his leadership off the pitch, I think it's just absolutely brilliant.
I'm sensing that we might have to end this podcast with our Dijksteel song.
Because I'm not singing it. Not a chance.
Yeah, this one isn't gin, unfortunately, nor is it Sprite, actually. So need a few more of those to be singing that.
Oh, absolutely. Because you're gorgeous. I'll do anything for you if you
thanks.
want. There you go. There you go, Dana. Just don't tell us. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you very much for joining me, as always. And the listeners, thank you very much for joining us as well. And thank you for giving us over 400 ratings, 5-star on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That does help us get found and charted by other Boro fans. And we really do appreciate every comment you give us as well. But that's it. The FA Cup dream is over, but there's plenty to be proud of, and the run-in has got 9 games to go. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was like a Boro Matchday chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.